Dear listener, Helen just disappeared behind a door.
Well, the reason I disappeared, Nathan, is because we haven't caught up for ages, have we?
No, it's been a while. We've been guest massive.
Yes, we have been guest massive. So, anyway, quickly, my name's Helen Tovey. I'm editor of Family Tree, and with me, as usual, is
Nathan Ward. Hey up.
yes, my favourite podcast accomplice. So, the reason I went disappeared off is it's out to go and collect my research log. Because I thought well, maybe we're going to get a chance to actually talk about our own family history today. Um, but although I have done some really recently, within the last few days, I am such a goldfish. If I don't write it down in that log, it may as well not have happened. So I thought I better have it to hand to jog my memory. Just showing off how useful a log is. Even if you're a scatty person like me, still super, super useful. Probably even more useful, in fact.
It is though, isn't it? As much as we joke about it and the need for it,
Mm.
we get gaps where you're super busy and you're doing too much and you can't actually do your family history research. Whereas knowing that I've got a piece of paper that tells me I've got 4 crazy things I want to research, I
Mm.
don't have to have that in my brain at all times. I can just go back to it. It's
Exactly.
useful in our busy modern day lives.
Exactly. So I just went to my little Excel file. Helen Tovey, Family History Research Log, last accessed yesterday. Very nice and current. Anyway, should we talk about what I've been doing? Shall I hog the airspace?
Yes, let's.
Okay, so we'll just dive in. So the reason I'm really excited about what I've been doing recently, and it is family history, but it's really recent in time. So really often in Family Tree, we're always talking about make sure you've written down your own life memories, make sure you've written down the life memories of the people close to you. But I think that's one of the hardest things to do, partly because when you're writing down your own life memories, as soon as I start trying to write down anything about my life, I just go like cringe. I just feel like, oh, no one's going to want to know that. I just feel really grimmed out by it. So to be honest, I barely ever do that. And then the thing I find hard about asking my close relations who are the generation above me, so like my mum and dad, some of my aunties and uncles, about asking them to write out about or asking them about their lives and their memories is because it always feels like there's this subtext. And I felt it with my granny in the last kind of 10 or 15 years of her life of like the subtext is we're none of us stay on planet Earth forever, dot, dot, dot. Uh, speaking law of averages, you've got less time than the rest of us, dot, dot, dot. So let's have your memories. So it always feels such a horrible conversation. I find that really hard to get over. But well, I'm so excited about this new tactic. And so rather than me feeling all overwhelmed, like, oh my God, I'm gonna try and get their life stories because I just know I'm gonna feel so gutted if I don't have as many memories as possible in as many different formats, so whether that's video recordings or audio recordings or written down as possible. And I know I'm gonna feel gutted if I don't have it, so how am I gonna go about it? What I have learnt is video is for me, for people in my family, is rubbish. They get too shy. Audio is perfect. They forget you're doing an audio recording and they just talk normally. So I'm like, okay, I'll forgo having their face on camera to have their genuine heart and speaking and natural voice, not feeling scared and everything else, and actually have a really nice conversation. It's a bit like podcasts because a podcast's fun because you can just waffle. Anyway, so I'm a bit like one of those awful clickbait things. Don't tell people what the thing is, just keep them hanging. The thing is to think of a really precise question. So I asked my dad, could he tell me, and I had asked him a few bigger, broader questions, and the conversation wasn't going anywhere. And I saw him just very recently, and I said, "Can you tell me, in chronological order, all the places you've lived in your life, from where you were born all the way through?" And so he had a really interesting life, because his dad was in the RAF, then he was in the army. So that involves a lot of houses. And he started telling me, but what was great was he didn't just tell me where he lived. He said why he lived there, other little details like what job his dad was doing when he lived there. My dad has 3 baby sisters. Oh, this baby sister was born there. He wove in like what his earliest memory. His earliest memory is him sitting on the living room floor of his granny up in Scotland, and they lived in a house where you had a lovely view of a loch. So already in my house, my head, it's kind of really romantic. And there's a little steam train set, like a toy steam train set, and it's going round and round on a circular track on the floor. And my dad can remember this, and he thinks he's about 2.5. and my granny is there and she's nursing a little baby. And this all checks out perfectly with the memories. So my dad's an August baby. His first baby sister is a September baby. And so it makes perfect sense that he's a 2.5-year-old boy, like 2 years, 4 months. He's been given a steam train for Christmas. And his mum's there with the little baby sister, so she would just be a tiny baby still, babe in arms, and it all checks out, and that's a little window into his life, which I got by asking him for a boring chronological series of addresses he'd lived at. So I'm like,
Yeah.
free to go. I'm going to ask these really. I'm going to ask next time. I'm going to do. Tell me about all the pets that you've had through your life. I'm going to keep it really unscary, specific questions. I get all these little nuggets on the side. What do you think?
I think that's brilliant. Yeah, because obviously, if you look at all the documents that you can research, obviously it's not modern history, but you don't get any of that texture or depth there because it is just facts and figures. Whereas, yeah, listing those locations and you're getting so much more information from it. That is a fab way to do things.
It felt a treasure.
Triggering memories.
Yes. Yes. So that's been like the highlight of my family history. And it's funny the way family history, because I bet you thought this, and I did as well. When you start out with family history, you think, oh, I'm going to build my tree and I'm going to get back as far as I possibly can in time. And then you suddenly realize that sometimes what you need to do is right in front of your face and it's close in time.
Yes, I mean, I struggle with that because my immediate family, there's not many of us left.
Mm.
But in a slightly similar way, I had this sort of realization last week or the week before, talking to Dr. Sophie K, weren't we, about the importance of like a research question. And I was looking at like 4 or 5 rabbit holes that I had. I was like, right, I might not go down these, but I'll write a research question for each one of them. So some of them are a bit more whimsical, like why was this person doing this? And other ones were find out the fact of what job they had or where they lived. So I wrote these down, and then I was looking at them, and I was like, as much as I've got these labeled under rabbit hole, that's what I'm interested in. My pursuit as a researcher, well, I didn't even really call myself a researcher, but I
You
don't,
are a researcher.
I don't seem to care about getting back anymore. I'm more interested in the stories, and I feel like it goes against everything in my head that I thought I was. It's changed me, so it's quite interesting to like be like, this is what's important to me. I want to get lost in these rabbit holes, and I can see all these people and build this texture. Yeah, I don't really know what I'm ranting
I
about
think it's
now.
consistent with you because it's consistent with you in so many ways. Partly because you're a really creative person, so those stories are really important because you're not a database kind of person. You are a creative person, so you're going to want to know about the people, and you're a people person, and your completionist aspect of you. You might have thought you wanted to complete a database, but actually, what you want to do is what is at the heart of family history. Is you want to get a more complete understanding of the lives they lived and the world they lived in. So it does make sense. And I think we need to rabbit holes. I think that for me they are they're always my best experiences in family history. They're the most rewarding. I learn the most. I have the most fun. I get the most understanding about the past. So I think we need to cherish those rabbit.
Yeah. It's just such a weird sensation though to become or be aware that I'm a family historian or a historian. Like small things now. I obviously I've talked about it too much. I run. Yes, I run. And there's a place called the Spen Valley Greenway. And I years ago started running on there, doing lots of marathon training. It's a very long distance. It used to be a train line. And I always ran through it, and you see the signal boxes, you see little bits of evidence of the trains, and I'm like, all right, yeah, whatever. Now I'm like, where has that train line gone? Why was it there? Who worked on it? And suddenly, it's just my mind has changed entirely. These things that I just might have noticed and dismissed, I'm suddenly fascinated by it. It's such a weird thing to feel yourself changing as a person, all through family history as well. It's
You're going to be very excited about a guest we've got coming to the podcast soon, and it's Dr. Mike Asbesta, and he's all about railways and railway history. But we can talk about him when we get to that stage. But you're going to love the railways input to our ancestors' lives. So this is a stupid question. So does Pudsey have a railway? Does it still have one? Or
it does, yeah, yeah.
hmm.
New Pudsey Station, but
Mm.
then yeah. Appley Bridge has got one as well, and obviously a lot of my local family live in that area. But I feel like that's a new station. I don't know. I'm not very up on train stations. It's
I don't think any station will be new because it was up until like the 60s, wasn't it? And I remember my dad always talking about it going like, is it Beeching's cuts? And so he was a politician who basically slashed the railway service of the UK, and the railways is something which is so close to so many people's hearts that people felt very bitterly about it, that the railway services to their communities were getting cut. Because it's practical, not just close to your heart, it's practical. If you can't get the railway to work anymore, it's a blooming nuisance, isn't it? So I suspect it would have been an old railway, might have new buildings on it, but it's going to be an old railway. I'd be really surprised if it's a new railway station.
well, that's what I think. Again, clearly I'm building myself a new rabbit hole to go down and find out the
Oh,
history of
what fun!
of this station.
Yeah, really good fun. Because also where you live, like Yorkshire's such a fantastic industrial county over so many centuries. You're going to have lots of this evidence of former railway tracks, presumably canals, bridges, mills. It's just going to be all over the place. And
Definitely.
your ancestors would have worked in some of them.
Yeah, definitely. And like just on like I'm thinking like just on a small scale, I know at least 3 pubs in the local area that are all called the Railway. There's no train line next to them, but obviously that must be an association. So that's worth digging into.
It definitely is. Definitely. Back to my dad. My dad had this lovely experience. I didn't actually see it, but my dad was talking to my little grandson, so his great grandson, and he was talking about railways. And then my little grandson, in speaking of railways, did the woo and did the when you put your arms and make the little railway, the wheels go round. That's sweet, just cute little grandson doing that. But what was really adorable was my dad's reaction, that he was just enchanted by the fact that his great grandson was still doing steam railway effects for a railway. So it's like going across the generations, isn't it?
Yeah, that's cool.
Here forever.
Such an iconic thing like the steam train that it's endured.
Mm,
I guess Thomas helps as well, doesn't he?
Thomas does really help. Yes. On a total change of topic, I took my car to the garage. I think this is related to, well, everything's related to family history. Took my car to the garage because it always guzzles up loads and loads of oil. And so I have to take it really often to get the garage man to put in just the right amount of oil. And he was talking about modern cars, and he said he reckons that most of them aren't going to end up as classics. They're just too throwaway and horrible. Whereas all the old things lasted. And I was just like, should have bought like a 1900 model Ford, whatever it is, Model T, or I don't know what it's called, one of those early cars from 110 years ago, and I'd be fine. I wouldn't have to keep going to the garage once a month to get oil put.
That really annoys me actually. I love old cars. I like American muscle cars, and I'll go to like these vintage car fairs and just sort of slaver all over these cars. But you see them running. I know they're well looked after, but you see them running in great condition. It must cost a packet to get spare parts. And then I look at my car, which will just conk out every other day for random reasons, and it irritates me. It's like, how can all these old cars be still functioning and on the road, and I'm struggling to get my car to pass its MOT? It's really annoying. Yeah, someone buy me a Ford Mustang. It'll be great.
Yes, yes. So speaking back of our family history, then have you done much recently, or how's it?
I
Because we last left, we were having a hot debate about whether one of your relatives was a nun or whether she was a sister, weren't we?
Yes, yeah, it was all tied into trying to find out if William was this particular William who had a World War One service record that I'd found.
Mm.
Because his name matched, the mother's name matched, but then there was this rogue sister that I decided was a nun.
Mm.
I have done more research on that, and I don't want to say I've dismissed it. I'm going to say I've put more negative towards it and parked it. It's the dates, not the dates, the addresses don't really match up because there was an address for the mother, so I followed that through. I tried doing research on this sister slash nun. Nothing was coming together. So I'm going to suggest it wasn't my William. William and Mary, quite common names.
Mm.
So for now, I'm saying it isn't one of my relatives' war records. But it was a good research task to do. It was nice to see the war record, and then like it told you where he served and what medals he'd got and etc. Why he was like
Mm.
why he left. Um, so I did enjoy that part. I'm a bit disappointed I don't have that record to tie to my tree, but I've still not fully said it's not. I'll like I say, I've made a note. I've done my research. It doesn't feel like it's linked, but
Oh, I love that mention that you've made a note. So you've made a note that this is a possible option, but you don't think it is because of X, Y, and Z. You've written that down in your research log or somewhere.
yes, because I don't want to obviously retread this ground again.
Oh, obviously, you don't want to.
What's going on
So
here?
impressed. It's good. No, it's really good. It's really good. Yeah. And with the document, have you saved a copy of it like in a possible folder, or what have you done with it? Because when I have things like that, I hate throwing it away in case it does become valid, but equally I don't want to put it in a muddle with all my stuff which I know is valid. So I have a folder and I call it possibles, and they've some of my things have been in there a long time. They don't.
Right.
Yeah.
I haven't done that. It's probably a good idea actually, because obviously I can't save it to my tree because it'll just confuse.
Mm.
So yeah, I could save it down to a document folder somewhere. I
Mm.
am disappointed. I because I want some war records. The weird thing as well about it was I was talking to my mum about it, saying I found this war record. Did anybody mention anything about this guy going to war that you remember? And she's like, I don't really remember any details, but I remember being told by an aunt that they thought William had got war medals,
Mm.
but they were stolen by the next door neighbours, or someone had come in and stolen them. So there is a story about some war medals being stolen. So he might have a service record somewhere. So it just it gives me that wonderment. Like, is this actually? Could it still be him? Could there still be this weird nun that nobody knows about in the family? So that's why I'm not willing to fully dismiss it. But
Mm.
it's just not sitting quite right with me. So
Mm.
I guess maybe that's another rabbit hole I could write down and see if I can actually search the war records, particularly to
Mm.
try and find him. Now that I know these documents exist in this way,
Mm.
that could be cool.
Mm.
One of his sons, was it his son or his brother? One of them, anyway. Benjamin, I mentioned before, he had an RAF record, allegedly. And again, I've not officially tied this to my documents. I joined some, I can't remember its name now. The Ancestries, is it Armed Forces?
Forces War Records.
Yeah, I signed up for that thinking I'd go get that record. But then they started asking me to pay money to see, I needed the premium package to see the actual document itself. So I became a tight Yorkshireman at that point and thought, I've probably got rabbit holes I don't need to pay for at the moment. So I'm
Mm.
parking that for now. But again, I want some armed forces, I want aeroplanes. So we'll see.
I don't think that's tight. I think that's wise because it's easy just to subscribe to things all over the place, and we've only got so many hours in the day, so you want to get the best benefit you can out of things. So definitely stick with making sure you're exploring all the military records you possibly can do on the place you're already paying, which in your case is Ancestry. And also, the National Archives is brilliant. It's getting more and more digitised military records, and some of them are really, really well indexed. So you could go and search on your person's name, and you may be lucky. I mean, obviously, you're not going to know whether it's a namesake or not, but they are indexed to a good detail. Lots of them, so it's worth having a look. Just for the sake of going to the National Archives website, it's just discovery.nationalarchives.gov.uk
Right.
and popping in their name, and they've got really good filters. So if you're interested in military research, and we've got Graham Bandy's fantastic series of articles which are going on in not in a bad way, in a good way, in Family Tree, and the reason why it's good they're going on and on is because rather than just skipping over the topic of the military in one issue, we're running a long series of articles which gives us a bit more scope to cover record collections, which can help you because it's when you do military research, it's a mixture of finding your individual person's personal details. From that, hopefully learning more about which regiment or unit or whatever they're with, and then you can go and get the diaries, which give a broader picture. Probably don't name them, but give you that context. It's always that individual record context. Yeah. On and on.
Yeah,
But it's good though. It's really interesting.
definitely. Well, I mean, obviously, I've been working on those articles, and that's sort of what spurred me on to really want
Mm.
to have some more war records because
Mm.
it's just interesting and like from like looking at the uniforms to finding out what the medals mean to, like you say, theatres of war, and it just creates this massive picture. And I know war shouldn't be glamorized, but it's an exciting thing to have this context and think, oh, they were on this path and they were in this country and they were flying this vehicle. It's cool.
I don't think it's glamorizing war. I think there's something which really connects us as humans. So if you think of all the great love stories, all the great movies, and they're always set in a dramatic time, aren't they? And it's never just like, oh, they were down their street and X, Y, and Z happened. It's always, and it was the bits of the Second World War or the Titanic. It's always these really dramatic phases of history, and we like them as humans. We love these big stories, don't we? That's what all the big films are about. They're set at, like, there's the end of the world, someone has to save the day, you know, if it's a sci-fi kind of thing, or the war version, it's the same idea. It's lots of drama happening and someone has to save the day. So we love seeing people's stories set in amazing contexts, and dramatic contexts, and life and death contexts. It's just how we are as humans.
Yeah, I guess so.
So our family history is no different. And I think what also particularly helps is because the army, like any employer or military, but like any employer, it needs to know about its employees. So it keeps really detailed records. So we would be just as delighted to know that our great granny, who was a laundry maid, was 5'6" with red hair and green eyes. But we're never ever going to find that out from the records because there's going to be such scant records for her. Whereas her future husband or her brother or whoever joined the military, his records will tell us that. So
Yeah.
we're going to love them for the detail that they give. And then we immediately do the other family history thing that we all do. We go, well, of course he's 5 or she's 5'6" because I'm 5'6", and you know, we love spotting similarities between us and our ancestors, don't we? That's why I love washing clothes, because I had a laundry maid ancestor.
Yeah. And that's why I can never leave Pudsey. When I go for a run, I stop at the boundaries and I can't
You're like a shopping trolley. Yeah, funny. Shall I tell you what else? So it's amazing if we don't have a podcast episode that doesn't mention ancestry, but I'm going to be really radical and mention something else I use. So Family Tree Maker is this online, not online, it's a desktop-based family history software program, which I've been using for years, and I love it. And I don't know why I love it, because it's quite annoying, but I do love it, even though probably every time I use it, I come across frustrations and hiccups and glitches, but I love it. Anyway, very exciting. It's got a new version out. We've been waiting for this new version since last year they announced it. The previous last version before then was about 5 years ago. So this is Family Tree Maker 2024, which just came out about a month ago. I know it's 2025. That's not my fault. Anyway, I'm very excited to have this new version of a software because it feels like that's the kind of home of my family history. Like I do like ancestry. I do like all these online things, but it's having one central place where I can include everything. And because it's not online, I can include things which are private, like if that makes it sound like I've got really big secrets. I haven't, but just there's some bits of my family history that people don't want to have put online, and I can have it just private on my own software on my laptop. So it's been really exciting exploring that and knowing that it's got a good future. Because with software, it's always nice to know it's being developed, because then you know that somebody's looking after it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I guess I just blindly went in, saw the Ancestry promos, and just went straight to Ancestry, and that's where I've put my tree. It is interesting to know that other people go to other places, or the reasons why they might use a different type of.
Why Family Tree Maker is really cool is because it syncs with Ancestry. So you can do some research on your Ancestry tree, and you can do some separate research on your Family Tree Maker tree. This is why I love it. And then you can just press sync and it will synchronize everything up, even to the extent if you've added photos and documents and things to your Family Tree Maker tree, it'll synchronize that up. So, but this is why I love it, is you can put a lock on things. So if I've got photos, let's say my uncle had given me some photos and said, by all means scan them, but don't put them online. I can scan them in, I can add them to my Family Tree Maker tree, I could put a little lock on them. I synchronize with Ancestry. Everything without the little lock, all those images will go up to Ancestry. The ones with the lock will stay secret and locked on my Family Tree Maker. That's super neat, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really good. It's quite an interesting concept as well. Like, I know it's not necessarily people's reasoning for using Ancestry, but Ancestry kind of is a bit like social media, isn't it? You're online, you're presenting your tree to the world, even though you might be just using it for yourself, and I know you can just keep it hidden.
Mm.
But the idea is it is a sharing platform, I
Mm.
guess, isn't it?
So that's great. That's really good.
Mm. I hadn't
Mm.
even thought about it in that way.
Mm. And it's not just the privacy factor or otherwise, because as you say, you could just have your ancestry tree and have it unfindable on Ancestry. But if Family Tree Maker, you can do so many things with your research that you're finding. So if you're adding let's say you're adding the census, you can add specific notes just about one little census record with one person, or when you add that census record, you can tag in everybody else who it's relevant to, or you can pull out all the address facts and list them for that person. So you can be really precise, and then you can make reports about all these things you found. Super geeky. It's nice. It's really good.
As long as it makes you happy.
It does make me very, very happy, and it does annoy me as well. And I always think, why do I like this program? But then I do, and I'm not changing.
Yeah. Going back to the National Archives,
Mm.
I've not actually explored them at all.
Mm.
All my research has literally come from Ancestry and a little bit of BMD and GOV. Look at me acronyming. Can I go to the National Archives without a reason, or is it better to have a question? Like, should I, if I had a list of like 5 or 6 names, would I find myself in trouble because my searches are going to be too broad, or should I have a natural reason to go there? Like, oh, I need to find out more about this guy's X, Y, and Z.
So that's a really good question. I think what you should do, you've never used the National Archives website, I would recommend that you go there. So go to discovery.nationalarchives.gov.uk. While you're there, create yourself an account. It's completely free. The reason why you want to create an account is because in the future, if you do find something of interest, then you can either pay £3.50 to download it, but if you're logged in with your account, you can download it for free. So of course you want to save that £3.50.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in.
So, and then you've done that, done and dusted, got your account there. Then when you're on the National Archives website, there's 2 really cool things to do. First off, one is go to their research guides. And if you don't have any particular research question in mind, literally just dip into the research guides. And they are so broad. So you could have a look. I haven't actually ever looked at this. We were mentioning railways a bit ago. Have a look and see if they've got something about railways. Have a look what they've got to do with First World War. Have a look what they've got to do with British Army. And you can tell by what I'm saying, some of their research guides are related to an era, some of them are related to a line of work, a topic. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So have a look and see what what they've got. And the research guides are fantastic. They'll give you an overview of all the records that they hold, which are relevant to that topic. They'll include links through to if they've got any catalogues, or if they've got any digitized versions. They'll give you links through to that. If the collections are digitized on another website, for instance, Find My Past, the genealogists, Ancestry, etc., they'll tell you they're available on those other websites. They're a really good one-stop shop to learn about a topic. Plus, so the research guides are organised A to Z, as you'd expect. And at the start, it has a number. I think it's just 1. But if you click on the number just before A, then it has research guides by century. So you're really into the 1800s at the moment, aren't you? So you can
Mm-hmm.
click on the 1800s, see everything related to research in the 1800s, 1700s. I think they go back to the 1500s with their collections of research guides. And the National Archives, it's phenomenal. Like it has 1,000 years of history. And it's just mind-boggling, isn't it? And it doesn't just cover England and Wales. Lots of it's England and Wales, but because of the nature of like the British Armed Forces, if you've got Scottish ancestors of the British Armed Forces, you're going to find them in the National Archives. It's a kind of, it's not just an England and Wales thing. It's broader than that. And plus, if there's things to do with passenger lists or colonial records. It's got broader connections, yeah, with the British Empire and the British diaspora population. Yeah,
That sounds really exciting.
really exciting. And it's so, and if you just talk about acronyms, so if you're looking to do with things to do with the military, then WO, which is War Office, that's really good for Army. There's another series which is ADM for Admiralty, or BT, Board of Transport, that's for your passenger lists. You don't really need to know these, but you'll, as you start to use them, you'll get familiar with that series number at the start, because these are government records created for the government. They're created not for family historians. Shock horror, even though we love using them. We're the main people who use them. I went to the National Archives recently, and I was just browsing around their bookshop, and I felt really proud of family history, because the bookshop isn't really massive, but it's a fascinating bookshop, obviously, as you can imagine, dedicated to all things historical. But I would say probably about a quarter of the bookshop is family history. And so I chatting to the guy in the bookshop and was like, "This is impressive. There's all this family history stuff. What's that? What's that about?" And he said, "Because we get so many family historians coming here. So you think of all the other reasons you could go to an archive for, like if you're a military historian, social historian, fashion historian, blah, blah, blah. But family historians are like the biggest chunk. So go us."
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, isn't it?
Mm.
I'm a little bit terrified though. Like, I feel like my mind has exploded already. Just
Mm.
the wealth of information that's potentially there. It's
Mm.
also making me aware that I feel like mentally I've said, right, I'm gonna do ancestry,
Mm.
gonna use quote unquote their hints,
Mm.
and I'm gonna get as much information as I can until I've exhausted ancestry, and then I'm gonna go move somewhere else. But I can't do that, can I? It's all got to work together.
Yeah.
Yes, I need to move past this. I'm
Yeah.
I'm trying to compartmentalize too much. I'm like, I can
Yes.
sit on ancestry, spend my money, get my information, and then once that's all done, I'll stop my subscription and I'll move to a different website and find this out. But it's all context based, isn't it? It depends on who you're looking at and what you want to know.
Mm.
And one thing's going to help the other. So I
Mm.
need to move myself mentally past this.
You do need to move yourself mentally past it, but the things to make you feel calm are, one is you don't have to pay a subscription to the National Archives, and another really useful website which you know about already is Family Search. Don't need to pay a subscription for that, and you know about FreeBMD, and so there's lots of places where you don't need to pay a subscription. So it's not like, even if you're weaving in more resources, it's not like that panicky feeling that you're spending more and more money and not getting the benefit of all of it. And then another thing is, on Ancestry you can do pause your membership. So I can't remember how much you can pause it for. I think you maybe can pause it for 1 or 2 months out of any 1-year period or something. So let's say you've got a really busy time coming up, not able to do much family history, or let's say you were just really immersed in another seam of records that you found on another place, or, which just happens to me, you suddenly realise you've just gotten a right muddle, your research log isn't as good as it should be, and you have to get yourself organised again. You can just put a bit of a pause and go, right, I'm just going to have a little admin phase and calm myself down by getting organised, and then go again. So that's worth knowing about. And so you're not stopping your subscription, you're just literally giving it a little pause on the bank. You do it via the Ancestry. So Ancestry know what you're doing. You just go to Ancestry, pause it, and then revive it after it's, I think it'll self-revive, to be honest.
All right,
I can't
cool.
remember. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, time is definitely a massive commodity in family history research. Like, I know I moan about finances stuff, but I'm very conscious of that stuff. But it's the next thing that is the hard part is time.
Mm,
It's like, you've only got a limited amount of time. How do you allocate it best enough?
mm,
And then we talk about this a lot about making sure your research log's up to date so you can just jump in and get what you want from.
mm,
But it just feels ever expanding, and a
mm,
bit of forget about being this running genealogist now. I'm a greedy genealogist. I want somebody
mm,
else's records to be my records, because it's
mm,
exciting when you hear things like, oh,
mm,
fun and interesting. Like, I want to make that part of my tree as well. I want these documents in my tree, and I want it all. It's I went to Family Search for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and I was amazed by that, because obviously it's got all the newspaper articles, and
mm.
that was like something I hadn't considered. I was like, oh my,
Was that Find My Past you went to for newspapers?
oh sorry, yes, Find My Past. I went to Find My Past recently, and yeah, just all the newspaper articles. Suddenly, I'm like, wow, I need to search for every single person on my tree and see if they appear. And obviously, I'm not going to do that, but it's another exciting.
You should.
Oh man, I need to find more time in the day. But it's exciting, isn't it? It's just, there's so much out there that you just don't know's there, and then so easy to get lost in.
Mm. I mean, the newspapers they're definitely worth. I sometimes they come up in the course of like definite is that like a key element of the research you're doing because it's definitely going to help provide you with clues. And then sometimes it's just worth a punt, and you think, for curiosity, I'm just going to see what's happening down their street or whether they're mentioned, and it does add flavour.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good fun.
I know, like there's my mum keeps telling me this story, and I keep on ignoring it, but it's gonna come up at some point where some part of my granddad's family, but I don't know how far back, owned a glue factory and were quite wealthy in the area. But there's no sense of what happened to this glue factory or who inherited it or whereabouts it's gone. So I feel like that's something that might appear on the newspapers.
Mm,
But I keep ignoring it.
that sounds good. Another good place to look would be trade directories. So you can have a look in Ancestry to see what trade directories they have. And there's a free website. It's a special collections at Leicester University. I can't remember the URL, but if you Googled free trade directories, special collections, Leicester University, it would come up. They are a bit frustrating to search though, so I would start with Ancestry first.
Okay,
I
cool.
find I find they are really good. The free website is really good, obviously, because it's free and it's got loads of things happening for England and Wales. But yeah, a bit frustrating search. You just mentioned I think you mentioned Family Search a little while back. So I had a really fun time, and a reader got in touch and they said that they had ancestors from Barbados, and their mum and dad had come over in being the first Windrush generation to the UK, and they didn't know how to track down their Barbadian ancestors. And I was like, right, I definitely want to help them do this, but also I was like, feeling I've never actually done this before. I'm now in like total newbie territory, and so I did some of the tips that I've kept on banging to you about. That if you're tracing a new place, go to the Family Search wiki, read about it, find out which record collections are available, because there's Family Search wiki for a place. Go to the Family Search wiki, look for the place you're interested in. I should have said that bit, and tell you all the records that are available. And so I did that, and then Family Search, the star that it is, had digitized with the beautiful old images loads of the records. And so before I knew it, I was finding out her granny and grandpa, their siblings. It was all worked. It's so nice because when you know something in theory, like, and it is what I do in my own research, but it was just really nice. It definitely worked for a brand new topic to me where I was just completely at the starting line with any knowledge for that area. As
Oh,
exciting. Mm.
yeah, that's great.
And it was interesting as well because it had really good records for recent. I say recent, but going back maybe to the late 1800s. But then there was this massive gap, and then there were records from around 1834. And the reason why there are records from around 1834 is when the end of the slave trade was kind of coming to fruition, and there's people. I don't know. This wasn't the slave compensation registers; it was different. But there was this gap of about half a century that I couldn't find any records for in the mid 1800s, where the plantation records and the era of slavery had finished, and then the other records start again. So it just shows the importance of knowing your place and what's available for your precise place. That's one key lesson I've strummed into me again. And the other bit was the historical context as ever. So to seeing it's not that far away, isn't it? It's within a couple of centuries. So it's the slaving connections to this person's family.
Yeah. I
Mm,
mean, I've said it before, the gaps in my historical knowledge are just massive, but doing this is really helping with like the finding like historical context, and then it just makes you aware of the wider world, doesn't it? And
mm.
it's just great.
Do you remember things as well, doesn't it? Because rather than just trying to remember a date, like when you're a kid at school, when suddenly you can go, well, if it was happening during my three times great grandfather's life, that's got to be the mid 1800s or whatever it is. Yeah. So it helps you, it all just helps weave everything in together and make it more memorable and relatable. So have you got any burning plans for the rest of your family history at the moment?
Well, I found like in that big splurge I did when I decided I was gonna go back on the ward line and just go backwards and like not get caught up in stories. I found 4 documents that give me stories, haven't I? So obviously not dismissed. I've parked the William World War I record, and I think I'm just gonna let the RAF one sit for a bit. Even though I love aeroplanes, I'm obsessed with aeroplanes. Anyway, I'm gonna let that sit. So the other 2 documents were a drunken disorderly 14-day prison sentence for potentially one of my great great grandmothers. So I need to find out if that was her. And then the other one was a great, I'm saying great great every time, but great great aunt who emigrated to Canada. So I've got like a ship's log, so I want to look at the ship and get a picture of that and find out a few more details on those. They're my 2 favorite looking rabbit holes at the moment. There are many more, but I feel like they're interesting and fun. Again, it was that thing of these are new documents that I haven't seen before. They're beyond the birth, marriage, death, and it was exciting. So they've drawn me in. So they're my 2 main tasks that I want to try and pursue. No doubt I'll get distracted and do something completely different.
I think your passenger list one, that sounds really, really good for your great great aunt, because I think it's in our July issue. We've got an article by David Annell about passenger lists, and he's saying, don't, make sure you're not missing any vital clues on there. So I bet you're doing this already, but with the passenger list, then making sure you don't just hop onto her entry and find out, her age and her occupation or her place of destination, all that sort of thing. But have a look at who else is on the passenger list, because it's just fun to visualize the other people on the voyage. Are there any particular groups of people? Are there any particular reasons for moving or any particular lines of work? Um, just to get a feel for who else is on board. And when you look through the passenger list, if you page back, when you're on, for instance, on Ancestry, and you get to the front, it will tend to list all the first class people first, and then it will go through, in the kind of, well, into the steerage class and things like that. So it's done in a pecking order.
Yeah.
That's interesting, and you can see, as you say, the name of the boat, the shipping line. So then you'll be able to search for it, get a picture for it. It's just evocative stuff. And newspapers, I mean, we get excited about it as family historians, but back weaving in newspapers, very often newspaper reports would say the HMS blah blah docked at blah blah on whatever date. And so that's fun. That's obviously, that's a noteworthy event, a massive great ship arriving and those people getting off. And then depending on when your great great aunt, when she arrived in America, there's other records, there's immigration records. There's Ellis Island, and before that, I think it's called Castle Garden. And if they're arriving in Canada, there's a pier. I think it's Pier 21. Can't remember the number. That's awful. I think it's Pier 21. So there's, you can get them off the ship, get them landing, start tracking them on the ground.
Okay, fab. I do think there are a couple of documents related to this that I've seen already, so I haven't like explored them deeply, but yeah, maybe that's my first port of call. You added their port. Nice.
Ha ha ha, yeah.
Sorry.
And then also you have to not have to, but it's worth having a look and seeing if they come back again, because people do sometimes decide, oh, that immigration plan, that was rubbish, I'm coming home again now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure they did just simply because when I mentioned this to my mum, she was just like, "Oh, yeah, I remember when your granddad died, we had to phone someone in Canada." It's like nobody had ever mentioned a Canadian relation or somebody living in Canada to me ever. Where's this come from? So yeah, I think they're still over there. We will find out. That'll be my journey.
Fun.
About you?
I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I have got a little bit of a sneaky plan. It's to carry on with my memories thing, because so I'm seeing my mum soon. So the question I'm going to launch on her is, I've already done the addresses thing with her, but maybe I need to do it again, because I did the addresses thing with her, but I only wrote down her answers. I didn't record them with audio. So I think it might be nice to record them with audio, because this is just another, it's always a useful learning thing. So with my dad, recorded it in audio. He told me his addresses. He went off all these little side shoots about, the siblings and his dad's occupation, his earliest memory, blah, blah. But with my mum, I asked her for a list of all the addresses she'd lived at through her life, which is, I think it's like 50 addresses because of the armed forces connections. Like her dad was in the forces, her husband was in the forces. So there's a lot of addresses, but because I was writing it down, I was much more brutal about, let's stick to the facts. You lived at number 47. Yeah. So there wasn't that scope for getting her memories in. So I might subtly try and redo that little project, but with audio, and let her mind wander and give me those lovely little treasures that I don't even know are there waiting to be given to me. And then my next question for them is, tell me about your pets, your earliest pet memories, going through all your pets through your life, because they're both animal mad people. And so I will get lots of cool stories about the pets, which I love, because when you see the old photos, I love knowing the names of the pets.
Yeah.
Some of my earliest pet photos, they're from like the late 1800s, and I know their names. Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
That is great, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of, I've mentioned it before, my great granddad, he kept canaries and sort
Mm.
of fan.
Mm.
When we were talking to Matt previously, a few podcasts ago, about his family, he was talking about mining incidents and things.
Mm.
And I just, in that, when we were talking to Matt, I suddenly thought, well, maybe the canary van was related to the mining industry. Because obviously, again, I don't know if I'm glamorizing it or just coming up with weird things that I've just read once, but obviously they had like canaries down the pit in
Mhm.
case there was
Mhm.
gas or whatever.
Mhm.
So I wondered, like, were they sold as pets or were they sold for the reason for the mining industry? Because obviously it's a mining area.
Mm.
So I feel like that's quite a cool rabbit hole to go down. See if I could find
Mm.
out about more about that, whether it was his job, because I know he did have a different job, but it just seems quite intriguing to see why and where and how. And I've got
Mm.
this really cute picture in my head of this van with like this really scripted name on the side of the van, and then you open it up as Canaries. Probably nothing like that at all, but I just think that's quite a cute thing to research.
Mm. It is, and it's a whole different era. Like I didn't know anything really about the history of bird keeping, like pet bird keeping. But as you say, the canaries down the mine, that's one thing, and then scrolling back or forward to the war, you think of carrier pigeons. And
Mm,
so these pets or their origin parts, partly there'll be lots of hobbyists, but there'd be hobbyist elements which also had useful elements, and maybe people bred them. I don't know. We're going to have to find out, Nathan.
yeah,
You've got a really cool project there.
it could just be like a big full stop, or he just sold them as pets, but there could be more stories. Who knows?
Mm. And then that's a different thing again, because that's kind of gone out of favor now because we feel like we don't want to keep animals unnecessarily caged.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's why it is so interesting, because it seemed like such a novel idea. Again, like I'm painting a romanticized picture of it.
Mm.
This dainty vintage car driving around the village.
I can see it totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna have fun then, and I'll let you know any other cool memories I get from the project pet.
Yeah, it sounds awesome, and I'll let you know which rabbit hole I decide to go on. That's nothing we've just talked about.
Yeah. Okay, see you next time then.
Okay, see you later.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye bye.